Thanks for staying with us. Time now for African News with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, regional leaders warn warring sides in South Sudan that civilians are paying for a ceasefire standoff with their lives. A city wrested by the army from rebels shows the extent of the devastating battling. Also, in Libya, more fatal violence hits Tripoli and Benghazi as ministers from the Islamist JCP party quit, saying the Prime Minister is incapable of getting a handle on security. And outside of polite and proper circles, a mashup of English has become the lingua franca across Nigeria. But some worry that Pidgin comes at a cost to traditional languages. First up, leaders from the regional bloc trying to broker peace talks between warring sides in South Sudan have warned of the mounting fatalities caused by fighting. Both the army of President Salva Kiir and rebels backing his former number 2, Riek Machar, have been accused of atrocities as ceasefire talks remain deadlocked. Now, the government's claim to have wrested back the city of Malakal from rebels may mean a shift in the political standoff. But for those civilians caught in the middle of the fighting, the damage has already been done.
Malakal is a ghost town. Days of heavy fighting have left many dead. The government of Salva Kiir now says it is in control of the capital of the oil-producing Upper Nile state. Most houses have been burnt and residents have fled to the hospital.
The hospital is crowded. Many people have flocked into the hospital, maybe under the pretext that the hospital is safer than any other place. But that itself implies that there are a lot of constraints. This is a hospital that has not been built for so many people.
The wounded say they were shot for no reason.
I was in the house, and these people come, they want the key of the house, the shop. So when I went to get the key, they shot me in my back, and I fell down. When I fell down, they went away and they did not take anything. They left me there.
In the hospital, we have food, but outside there, people are suffering. Houses are burnt, everything is looted.
Some analysts believe the recapture of Malakal could break the deadlock in ceasefire talks. Until now, the talks in Ethiopia have made no progress and have failed to stop the killings.
Now, at least 5 people have been killed in clashes between armed groups in suburbs around Tripoli. Residents of Where Shifana say they heard gunshots and explosions throughout the day on Tuesday as the violence dragged on. Meanwhile, in Libya's second city, Benghazi, 2 special forces officers died when their vehicle was blown up in the latest in a spate of assassinations of security personnel there. Now, the persistent lawlessness saw the country's Islamist party withdraw all of its ministers from the government in protest on Tuesday. The JCP is pulling out because they say Prime Minister Ali Zidan's incapable of leading the country back to post-revolutionary stability. For more on this, we're now joined by our regional correspondent, Maureen Casales. Maureen, now, there's actually been weeks of infighting in the General National Council ahead of this decision by the JCP. How is this pullout going to affect that political stalemate?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for weeks now, groups of MPs have been trying to bring a vote of no confidence against Ali Zidan and his cabinet, but they needed 120 votes, which they have failed to reach. So after failing for several times, the Islamist Party Justice and Construction, the political arm of the Muslim Brotherhood in Libya, has announced today the withdrawal of 5 of its ministers. With the withdrawal of the key ministers, such as oil, electricity or housing, the party hopes to put more pressure on Ali Zidan so that he will leave himself the government. Yet it is unclear whether this move will hinder or help Ali Zidan, because indeed he had made clear for a few times in the past that his ministers and deputy ministers from the Islamist party were hindering the work of his government and any progress in Libya. The only sure thing is that this resignation will actually deepen more the political deadlock in Libya. And a week ago, the parliament itself was stormed by armed men asking for this no-confidence vote against Ali Zidan. And he said after the day that he will reshuffle the cabinet before next Friday.
Thanks very much. France 24's Maureen Casales there on ongoing security concerns in Libya. Now, the UN has warned that it is running out of supplies for the growing number of those who've lost their homes in Central African Republic's crisis. Around the capital, Bangui, at least 100,000 people have fled clashes between Muslim and Christian militia and have camped out at a tent city near the airport. Now, they're hoping their newly elected leader will work fast in tackling the deepening humanitarian crisis. Bangui Mayor Catherine Samba Panza has told France 24 that her government will be one of reconciliation and vowed to talk directly to the fighters themselves.
I will meet with the armed groups and listen to them. If they have taken up arms, that means that they have a reason to do so, so we need to listen to them and understand their demands and figure out if they're realistic or not. Thousands of young people have taken up arms. They're either part of the Seleka rebel movement or the anti-Balaka. If we don't take care of these people, we won't resolve the problem. With the new government, with the Minister of Security, the Minister of Defense, and the Minister of Education, we'll see what opportunities we can give them. Because they often join these armed groups because they're extremely poor and don't see a future ahead of them.
Well, the chaos in Central African Republic threatens to destabilize the whole region. Today, Cameroon said that 3 former Central African rebels have been killed by soldiers in a gunfight that spilled across borders. Now, the violence has hit regional trade hard as well.
A game of poker to kill time in a makeshift camp while waiting for traffic to start again. In Cameroon, truck driver spirits are low. Since the beginning of the crisis in the Central African Republic, very few trucks have made it to the other side of the border. In 6 months, 2 Cameroon truck drivers have been killed in the Central African Republic. Insecurity and racketeering are blocking the way to Bangui. When it isn't the drivers, it's the trucks that are targeted.
The Seleka have taken 2 of our trucks. They were demanding 30 to 35 million per truck. At each post, a Seleka demands a fee as a formality, 10,000.
As an entrance and exit point for goods in the entire sub-region, the port of Douala is also suffering from the blocked traffic. The Douala-Bangui axis is vital, essential for the opening up of the Central African Republic to other regions, including Cameroon.
The Central African Republic has big companies that usually export wood from the port of Douala. This wood is now being stocked at Bangui and cannot reach the port of Douala. The Central African Republic is losing exports, and Cameroon is also being deprived of export taxes.
At the weighing post, an obligatory stop for trucks, a traffic deadlock is confirmed.
The Central African destination represents 25% of all the traffic that comes through. The biggest destination at the moment is Chad.
The few trucks that do make the road to Bangui stop and unload just before the border. From then on, insurance no longer covers them. The risk is too great for the transporters.
To Nigeria now, where with hundreds of local languages and dialects spoken across the huge country, the one constant you want if you want to get your point across is Pidgin English.
Then, indeed. In a country with hundreds of languages, it's no surprise that the common tongue in Nigeria is something of a hybrid.
And then APC don't say national dialogue where ASCO said they're not join.
Wazobia FM is one of the country's top radio stations and broadcasts only in Pidgin, a mashup of English and elements of local languages. Many see it as the glue that binds Nigeria's disparate population together.
For you to reach the common man easily, you must speak in the language that they understand. Break it down. Give them the broken English or the Pidgin English. Yeah? Give it to them for them to understand.
Standard English, not Pidgin, is Nigeria's official language, but it's seen by many as elitist and is spoken mainly in urban areas like Lagos. At schools, English teachers often feel they're fighting against the tide.
Whenever they talk to themselves, they prefer using the Pidgin English because, like we said, it's understandable to them more. So yes, I find it difficult most of the times correcting their expressions because it breaks a lot of things. It breaks the English language too much that it destroys their written English as well as their spoken English. Sometimes it feels like we can't do anything about it, but I still believe we can. It's not a losing battle.
Even the major Nigerian languages like Igbo, Hausa and Yoruba are seen as being under threat, from Pidgin but also due to a lack of qualified teachers. Whether local languages face extinction or not is hard to say, but the rise of Pidgin, from a patois of the uneducated to Nigeria's unofficial lingua franca, seems assured.
Page 6, now you go read them.
That's it for me. More news and headlines coming up, though, with Mark Owen up next.